Okay, today let's talk about some cards revealed at MagicCon this weekend, because spoiler season never ends. Chandra Hope's Beacon is a planeswalker with 5 loyalty for 4 and 2 red, with a static ability that says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. +2 says add 2 mana in any combination of colors, and +1 says exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from among those exiled cards. Then, -X says, Chandra Hope's Beacon deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. I like the direction they're taking planeswalkers these days by giving them a powerful static effect and removing their ultimate abilities. In general, the rule was to choose planeswalkers according to their plus and minus abilities anyway, and the ultimate was simply icing on the cake, because the odds of it sticking around long enough to use those were quite low. Obviously, this planeswalker is for spellslinger decks, but her ability to create 2 mana in any combination of colors makes it workable with any color that might dip into the slinging of spells. She costs double red, so her versatility is limited, but even so, you can tap out to cast her, and then have 2 mana available to cast a spell and have it copied. Swords or Path could remove 2 creatures, Contentious Plan would proliferate twice and draw you 2 cards, Crop Rotation would get you 2 lands for the cost of 1, Dark Ritual would get you 6 mana, and Battle Hymn would give you a red mana for each creature you control, twice. I really like the versatility that Chandra Hope's Beacon offers, even in Commander where planeswalkers might be less effective. But what's even more exciting in this set is the combination of all of our favorite characters and cards from the Magic universe. Thalia saw what Tatsunari was doing in Kamigawa and thought it was a good idea, so she hit up her good friend the Gitrog monster and asked for a ride, I guess. Thalia and the Gitrog monster is or are a 4/4 legendary human frog horror with first strike and death touch for 1 white, black, green. It says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attack, sacrifice a creature or land, then draw a card. The value for landfall decks is great here. The Gitrog monster has always been a staple in that strategy, but adding in Thalia's static ability and creating the 4th creature in existence with static first strike death touch on a 4/4 body is wild to me. I don't play a lot of landfall decks, but having the ability to sack tokens on attack to draw cards and play an additional land just sounds way too good to ignore. This one is mythic, so we might be seeing the top end of power here, but at the same time, we've all been seeing the power creep hitting the common rarity, so if this entire set is pushed like this, we're in for a wild ride. And speaking about wild rides, how about Mavren hitching a ride on Ghalta? Ghalta and Mavren is a 12/12 legendary dinosaur vampire with trample for 3 green, white that says whenever you attack, choose 1. Create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with trample where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures, or create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Once again, we have some versatility here and I love it. If you're in a big green stompy synergy, you'll be cranking out a beefy dinosaur to smash your opponent's faces in. If you're in a go wide token strategy, you get even more tokens when you swing, and those vampires have lifelink on top of that. Both effects will trigger ETB effects, which is great, but if Ghalta and Mavren aren't removed before they can swing next turn, your opponents are going to be staring down the throat of a 12/12 dinosaur vampire. I hope this one is cheap, because my Rigo deck would love it. And speaking of cheap things, why don't you sub to the channel and like the video if you're enjoying what you've seen so far. It helps the channel grow and get the videos out to more people who might be interested in the content. And maybe one of these days, you'll see a card spoiler on this channel. That would be awesome. Thanks for helping me out. Then we have roommates Drana and Linvala, a 3/4 legendary vampire angel with flying and vigilance for 1, 2 white, and a black that says activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. Now the next part bothers me. It says Drana and Linvala has However, that of course isn't proper English, so let's fix that for the wizards at home. Drana and Linvala have all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. This one card screws over so many decks and gives you access to any of the most powerful abilities on the table. And since they have vigilance, you can attack and leave them available to activate any of those abilities if you want, if they have a tap requirement. This being able to shut down Kikijiki, Brea, or so many other critical abilities is absolutely painful. Just thinking about how this would break my Shorekai deck has my head looking for solutions, but at least it dies to removal, right? Gorogoro and Satoru is pretty simple, but it might be pretty annoying to make effective use of. It's a 3/4 legendary goblin human for blue, black, red that says whenever one or more creatures you control that entered the battlefield this turn deals combat damage to a player, create a 5/5 red dragon spirit creature token with flying. Then you can pay 1 and a red to give your creatures haste until end of turn. The simplest way to go about this commander deck is to use the many different creatures in blue and black that are unblockable and flying, since that'll get through, and use red to give them haste without paying for it from Gorogoro and Satoru. Then you have blue to counter board wipes and black to get creatures back to the field. It's a really simple design that might be really effective since you'll be making lots of 5/5 dragons, but only time will tell. Next we have Heliod. Heliod, the Radiant Dawn, is a 4/4 legendary enchantment god that costs 2 and 2 white. It says, when it ETBs, return target enchantment card that isn't a god from your graveyard to your hand. Then you can pay 3 and a Phyrexian blue mana to transform Heliod into Heliod the Warped Eclipse, a 4/6 legendary Phyrexian god that says you may cast spells as though they had flash, and spells you cast cost 1 less for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So during your opponent's step, all spells you cast will cost 1 less, and if they're drawing more cards than that, it reduces the cost of your spells further, and then you cast your spells at flash speed before their turn ends. The total mana cost on this is 8 mana, or 7 mana and 2 life, on top of Heliod living long enough to transform. But if he does, the discount on all of your spells will more than make up for that risk. You're in white-blue anyway, so protecting him should be pretty easy, especially thanks to the spell discount you'll be getting from the transformed version. And next, we have Omnath, locus of all. Many Magic players have been waiting for the Omnath cycle of creatures to finish, and now we can say it's finally complete. Omnath, Locus of All, is a 4/4 legendary Phyrexian elemental that costs white, blue, Phyrexian black, red, and green. It says if you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes black instead. And at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card if it has 3 or more color mana symbols in its mana cost. If you do, add 3 mana in any combination of its colors and put it into your hand. If you don't reveal it, put it into your hand. Now the coolest part about this is of course being able to keep black mana as turns go on. But the card advantage isn't bad even if you're not running a lot of 3-color spells. After all, there's a reason the multicolor cards in New Capenna aren't exactly making any waves right now. But running Locus of All with the same strategy as the original Omnath, Locus of Mana, is an incredible flavor choice. The mana turning black is going to make way for some pretty big Exsanguinate and Torment and Hailfire game enders, which will be fun to deal with. And let's be honest, the art for all of these versions are absolutely amazing. Next is Jin-gitaxias. It's a 5/5 with Ward 2 that costs 3 and 2 blue. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. Then you can pay 3 and a blue to transform Jin-gitaxias. It says exile Jin-gitaxias, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery, and only if you have 7 or more cards in hand. It enters as a saga called the Great Synthesis. Chapter 1 says draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the Great Synthesis. And Chapter 2 says return all non-Phyrexian creatures to their owner's hands. And Chapter 3 says you may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. Exile the saga, then return it to the battlefield front face up. So clearly, Spellslinger decks have a new toy. This does have quite a bit of vulnerability to it, but if you're in blue, counterspells exist. I'm more of a combat or artifact type player, so I'd run this as an artifact focused deck, which would be fantastic. Even if it wasn't the commander, this Jin-gitaxias being in the 99 would still be very effective. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of this cycle. And finally, we have probably the most fun card we've seen so far. Yargle in Multani is an 18/6 legendary frog spirit elemental that costs 3 black, and a green. It has no ability text, but the flavor text is amazing. It says, "I've heard much about you from my daughter," Multani rumbled. "There was a time when I'd balk at your aid, Phantom, but she has shown me the merit in Urborg's strange ways." Ginchug Fribbit. I can't even do it, replied Yargle. I can't do it. It has ribbit in it though. That's awesome. I can't get over how cool and simple this card is. I know they wanted to keep the flavor and the cuteness of Yargle intact, but not giving it any of Multani's abilities or keywords is a little sad. Thankfully, it's in green, so it'll be really easy to give it keywords, and let's be honest, this one only needs trample and 3 more power to take out an opponent. I know it's only been a week since All Will Be One has been released, but I'm kinda glad we're seeing these spoilers ahead of time. And after this, it should only be a week or 2 before someone opens boxes that have March of the Machine cards in it anyway, and those are gonna be all over Reddit. But that's about it for now. I'll be brewing around some of these for fun, so look forward to those deck techs in the future. In the meantime, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.